thanks so much for joining our first official ever membership meeting on Zoom or any other place, just plain old membership meeting. And as you are all aware, the subject is going to be harbor reports. As an idea one of our directors had to kind of keep everybody up to speed on what's going in and around the harbor. And also it's an opportunity to ask questions about that you may have about what's going on in and around the harbor. I first wanted to just make sure everybody knows that we have, I put it in the newsletters, but we have an updated strategic plan, or it's actually the first strategic plan that Friends of Barnstable Harbor's ever officially had. And it's certainly worth taking a look at. It sort of talks about, there's some history as well as some ideas for the future. Further, we have introduced something that we're calling Harbor Stories, which is really meant to be an opportunity for everybody to tell their stories about Barnstable Harbor. I know we all have them. I know we have stories about some of our friends. Some of those people may no longer even be around. So anyway, it's a great chance to do some writing or send pictures, whatever suits you, or just call me up and I'll write it. So that's what Harbor Stories is all about. Finally, quite finally, but our benthic habitat mapping project, which has been ongoing for quite a while now. I reached out to Center for Coastal Studies, and they anticipate having a comprehensive draft report by July, or hopefully no later than the end of July or early August. Further, they anticipate having a final report by the fall of 2021. So I can't wait to see that. I mean, that's sort of been a long time coming. We spent a lot of money on that, and before everything changes too drastically, it'd be great to actually be able to see that report. Next, we are scheduling another Harbor Sunset cruise. It'll be in September. The details are far from being finalized, but we anticipate that will be another really fun event for anybody who was on the last cruise. It was really, even though it was windy as all get up, it was a lot of fun. And so we can start our harbor reports. I was hoping that Liz Lewis from the Town of Barnstable Shellfish Technician might be here. She did say she would be here, but I do not see her. So let's just skip over her. We can come back to her if she checks in, and let's go straight to Gordon. Gordon is our, I'm sure most of you already know, our Precinct 1 town councilor. And he's going to talk to us. Well, he can answer any questions you may have about the harbor in terms of the town. But Doug Moquin, who is on the Friends of Barnstable Harbor board and represents the Sandy Neck Cottage Colony, he's going to maybe tag team a little bit with Gordon, because I know that Doug has a big interest in the dredge spoils and the possibility of some of those landing in the cottage colony area to help keep the houses out there safe from high water and things like that. So Gordon, are you here?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
And
Okay.
Gordon, when you want it, I can screen share the picture of the dredging plan.
Okay. So at the moment, the channel is broken into basically 3 sections. There's an outer harbor section, the mid entrance channel, and then the inner harbor. Well, actually, there are 4 sections, and the 4th section is the ramp, the Blish Point ramp, which they did last winter. So they did the ramp last winter. Robert B. Howard did it, and I think that worked out all right. Maybe Mark's used the ramp, I don't know, or you use Scudder Lane. Okay, so the plan is to work on the outer, they did it is when they finished the ramp, the Blish Point ramp, they did some surveys of the channel going out, and they think that their determination was that the mid-entrance channel, it goes out the channel about and stops, the line is a couple hundred feet before the first right-hand turn in the channel.
Hang on, I can put up the picture.
Okay. It's,
Can you all see that?
do you have the other picture? Well,
Isn't
yeah.
that where?
See the dark line at the bottom, the vertical line, the real, to the left is the outer channel, to the right is the inner channel. And then you can see the little offshoot for the Blish Point, the ramp.
Can you
So the
see
outer,
my hand? Can you see my cursor?
yes, I can. Yes. Okay.
So that's the inner,
Yep.
and this is
That's
the
the mid channel. That's the mid channel. I think the inner is further into the basin,
Okay.
way in. And they're not talking about that at the moment. So we're looking at the outer channel, which starts. Can you put your hand where it starts? Yeah, a little to the right. Oh, yeah, that's it. So the outer channel, they're planning to dredge next winter. They are going to use the county dredge. I think they're still finishing up the permits. They want to take the sand, and maybe Doug knows more. They want to put it on Sandy Neck to the west of the cottage colony where they had put dredge spoil before. It's pretty, when you get on the outer section of the channel, it's good, clean sediment that, we know is moving. Actually, Avery and I had a discussion about this the other day. Is what's filling in the outer channel moving west or moving east? That's a question.
I think it's moving east. Mark, what do you think?
I think it's moving west.
I do not know in that section. I
Yeah.
can't really say.
Okay, so it's good clean sand, so they want to take it and put it on Sandy Neck. That would be the preferred method. They could pump it there and let it would just dry out all on its own. You wouldn't have to dewater it. And they could probably bring out a front end loader down the beach, and the town could do a lot of the work itself. So it would save money that way.
They do dewater it though.
Do they? Yeah. Or they put it in, yeah,
They run an outfall pipe and dewater.
yeah. So that's a preferred method, and hopefully that will get done this winter. That's the plan. The mid channel, what is it called? The mid entrance channel.
Is this area here?
Yeah, right. The red lines that you see on this map are actually lots of little numbers. So they did a transects along the channel and decided that this midsection doesn't need to be done at the moment. I would bet the Whale Watch probably disagrees with that. So I don't know whether we need to go out and do our own transects, since they're looking for 6 feet of water at low mean water. So there should be 6 feet below low tide. In the outer channel, there are places where that's not true. Where they know that, but the mid entrance channel, they think is still at 6 feet. So I haven't been out there this year, so I couldn't tell you.
I would agree. I know that I told Gordon this, but I guess it was 2 weeks ago now, when it was a 6:30 low tide. It was the full moon tide, and it was a negative 1.9 tide.
Amazing.
And Jack, first of all, the whole harbor, the marina was crazy. There was so much mud in the marina. My boat, well, doesn't matter, but I did get out, but barely. But this area where I'm circling the cursor right now, Jack Hill was out on his boat, and he had a pole, and he was guessing the depth. And I have a sonar on my boat, and I could read it, and it got as low as 1.5 feet deep out there. And I mean, it's really shaky. But John Brink, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
I can. I feel like this channel in some ways is similar to the outer channel by the Bell Buoy, where it just seems to shoal up on the east side in a similar kind of way. Do you notice that at all, or you guys?
Oh, yes, we notice that. We watch every year as we get going, okay, what's our depth out here? Because that really has over the past 5 or so years shoaled up quite a bit. And well, we've got the new portion of Sandy Neck building right off of Beach Point now too. So that's interesting. That whole bar is going to be crazy with Fluke here in a couple of weeks, I hope. But yeah, we noticed that. I mean, it's the same sort of, as I'm looking at the transect here, it's the same sort of buildup, the same sort of, transport that's depositing it, is my guess.
It's interesting. Doug, do you have any questions for Gordon or anything that you feel that we should know about in terms of dredge spoils or?
Yeah, the only thing I think that we'd like to know is, it looks like, and I don't know because I'm not an engineer, but it looks like they've changed where the dewatering is going to take place. And we don't know where they're going to pump first, in what area they plan to pump in. And we just like to get somebody out here from the town just to go through that and explain to us what they're doing and how they're doing it. Because I think everybody, for the most part out here, is for it. But I think it would help if we knew exactly what was going on. Because I think it saves the town $450,000 to pump it out here.
Probably.
So
Yeah, the alternative is to ship it around to Sandy Neck. And I don't know whether they would do that by truck or, there you go.
or they go to Millway, which I think they've
Right.
had some there in the past. So, but that is a deposit site too.
So Doug, can you see this picture? This is
Yeah, I know this.
this is where they want to put the dredge spoil.
Right, but we don't know exactly where they've already filled a lot of that. So it's
Okay.
portion, I think, that we need it the most, and we want to make sure that that's where it's going to go.
Okay.
See,
How did-
that's from the original 2008 dredging. So we don't know what they're going to fill now. I mean, it's still the same. I guess they can take another 8,500 cubic yards, but we don't know exactly where they're going to put it. And that's what we'd like to know. And when they dewatered before in the marsh, and it looks like they've changed that. And it looks like that could be in some shellfish beds now. But I don't know that for a fact. That's why I'd love to have the town come out one of the end where it's at.
So were there problems they did it 10 years, more than 10 years ago now? Were there?
No, there weren't any problems.
Okay. Yep.
And that's why we'd like to keep it that way.
So actually, doesn't this help stop the water from coming around behind some of the cottages?
It does.
Yep.
And any fill we can get out here helps. There's no doubt.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any questions about dredging in the harbor channels or deposit of the dredge spoils? I'm gonna go with that's a no. Blue?
Actually, I have one question, which is, are the mussels to the left of the cottages safe? Because that, they killed the Mussel Point mussels at one point. And now there are some to the left, sort of to the left of that dock that's there, to the left of the cottages.
The dredge spoil is going to go on land. It's none of it's
Just entirely on land.
It's entirely on land.
Oh, good, great. I'm relieved.
And we could also talk about what killed the mussels, because that's a mystery to me.
Well, when Liz comes, that would be great.
Okay, yeah, you're right. She might have a good answer. Yep.
There's not many mussels left even in front of the cottages.
Right.
Really? Ooh,
Yep.
last year. Okay.
There's a lot of big ones, but
The big ones are still delicious.
They are. They have some pearls in them, though. You got to watch it.
Yep, you gotta be careful. You're absolutely right.
Tell me, and Tyler, welcome. I just saw you sign in.
Hello.
Hi. Tell me, I've always heard that the mussels on Mussel Point are cyclical and that they have on years and off years. Any input, Mark or Tyler or anybody on that?
It's kind of like every shellfish. I mean, it's boom and bust. Some years it's there, some years it's not.
I completely agree with that. Yep.
Though one year, Liz told me that they allowed a cat food producer to come in and take big ones on Mussel Point. And I lamented that no fathers and mothers were left. They just decimated all of them. And she said that she didn't know that that had happened, but there was no question. There used to be Bountiful. And then she said a cat food person had been allowed to come in.
I also was wondering what impact the eider ducks have on those mussels.
Huge. They love them.
Interesting. And the oyster catchers. Well, anything else on mussels or on specifically on shellfish? I'm not quite sure what happened with Liz Lewis. She apparently isn't here today, which is too bad. I thought she was going to be able to join us.
Could you telephone her, Avery?
Yeah.
Maybe I could try that. I'll do that. But while I'm trying to figure out how to do that, I have a question for Gordon.
Oh, okay. I was gonna talk about we're also talking about Scudder Lane. I know Mark wants.
Perfect. That's what I was going to ask
That was
you
the
about.
next question. So there's money in the capital budget for this year for designing the Scudder Lane ramp, a new ramp at Scudder Lane, and rebuilding the drainage and the wall that's falling apart right at the end of where you park facing the water. That whole fence is sort of falling in. It seems it was like $150,000 for design and permitting, but I tried to get more specifics, but there are lots of permits. They have to get 4 or 5 different permits from DEP, and so it will take a year to permit it, and then next year we'll assign money to have the ramp built. So it won't be built this winter, but next winter. That doesn't make sense. It won't be built next winter, but the winter after. So. And Marco also was asking about cutting the road, and I haven't heard back from Dan Santos.
Yeah, I measured it just the other day. I had 1.5 feet on either side of my pickup truck between vegetation on the left and vegetation to the right. So that was, being kind of in the center of the road.
Right.
When a lot of people are parked on the right-hand side of Scudder, you're just listening to the vegetation rub against your paint as you're driving down the road, which is
Yep. Yes.
not a happy thing to hear.
No. Okay.
Avery, did you get a chance to call Liz? I have her cell phone.
Oh, you do? I called the number, but it went into a phone tree. So
Okay, let me give a shot to her, and I will see if I can get her.
thank you. That'd be great.
Okay.
Any other questions for Gordon?
I have a quick permitting kind of question, Gordon. Hi. With the possibility that some things will change, some tweaks about the landing zone for the spoils from dredging, does that change the permitting process? Does it have to be tweaked there too? And does that delay things, or are there parameters within which changes can be made without delaying things? I guess is what I'm wondering.
Yeah, I think what I think they're working to permit all 3 places, whether it be in front of Blish Point, out in Sandy Neck, or way around by the Sandy Neck parking lot. So just to leave themselves options. And I don't know, the sand, we had a pretty good winter in terms of sand in front of the Blish Point parking lot. It seems to be, things seem to be pretty stable there at the moment. I know if that washes away too much and we get into the old dredge spoil, it's buried under there, we're in trouble.
So I left 20-something years ago, and it sounds like things haven't changed much.
No,
Which I didn't expect them to, and that's okay. But
it hasn't
but
stabilized there, you know?
I'm hoping that the town has changed its techniques a little bit. I understand their permitting is a little bit more aggressive and proactive than it used to be, that's a huge help if that's true. I'm hoping that's correct.
So what do you mean by that? I don't.
Well, they used to wait until there was this urgent need, and they'd use
Oh,
the
okay.
crisis as the reason to apply for permits, and you'd still have to wait to go through the whole
Right.
process of obtaining them. And then we started, as I was leaving off, we were talking about, so treat it like cyclical maintenance on your house, you know, do it
Yep.
every X number of years, and you can predict and know what you're going to need. And especially with a cyclical harbor like this, where things change in a somewhat predictable way in a certain interval of years, barring storms or icebergs going out at 9 knots in February or something, it's pretty easy to plan ahead. And it sounds like they're starting to do that.
Yes, it sounds like that they definitely are starting with the channel, trying to, you know, get the permits in hand. So when either the channel, you know, fills up unexpectedly over a storm or something, you're right. So they can have shovels in the ground, you know, have everything
Yeah.
ready to go.
I thought of you all 2 days ago. I was out on my boat for the first time down on the south side in North Bay in Osterville, and I saw the Rosie K there at anchor. And I was thinking, okay, that's Billy Lister drawing 6.5 feet, and he's not on the north side with a Rosie K. There's something parked in the back of my mind when I saw that. I don't know how relevant that was, but I couldn't help but think it might be.
So he keeps the boat on both sides.
Oh, does he now? Oh, I
Yes,
didn't know that.
You just got a new boat.
So
A
she's
lobster
up here
boat
too.
called Muscle Point, that's on the north side.
Oh, okay, I didn't realize that.
For lobstering, and the
Gotcha.
Rosie K probably uses for bass fishing or whatever.
He does conch on the south side.
Conch on the south
I
side,
was
yeah.
going to say he's not lobstering with what I saw in the boat, so that makes sense. Conch is right. Anyway, I just know that was the boat that used to draw a lot, and there were days he would really bitch and moan because he couldn't get out or couldn't get back in. I felt his pain.
Well, anything else
Yeah,
from?
can I ask John, how do you handle the whale watch boat? Do you not go at dead low tide?
No, we've got about an hour, usually about an hour and 15 minutes either side of dead low. That it's a no-go.
No go, okay.
So, but we can sneak in, but yeah, the dredging this winter was, let's say, partially successful, I think so, for our needs, but we're managing. We're
Yeah,
getting in and out.
Okay, thanks.
Well, Gordon, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to share with us what's going on. And thank you for keeping up and keeping Barnstable Harbor in the minds of the town at large. It's a really important thing. And, I know you care a lot about the harbor, so I'm sure you're keeping our.
So keep calling me and keep bugging me. I know Mark is trying to keep, I need to be bugged. Okay, so thank you.
Great. Hey,
Avery,
Mark.
I left a voicemail. I mean, I have her cell. I called her cell. It went to voicemail, left a message, but it's not.
Best laid plans. So, well, then let's move on to Britt and let's get a fishing report. And hopefully Mark Begley will chime in because he just gave me a fishing report resembled a little bit mine. But Britt, can you give us the latest and greatest, please?
Sure. Well, the fishing has been picking up ever since late April. A lot of schoolies around, 12 to like 26, 27 inches. The biggest I've got so far is like 27 inches. And although I've seen a few over 30, 32 who were looking at me, but didn't do much more than that. And one, I heard of a 40-inch plus fish caught last week, and a bluefish caught behind Phyllis Island last week. So that's a good sign. Lots of sand eels and mackerel around for bait. Saw the first school of menhaden on May 19th, just off Salton Point. Last summer, as everybody I'm sure noticed who was out on the boat, there were just tons and tons of menhaden, also known as pogies and bunker, in the bay and also in the harbor. But I didn't see a whole lot of stripers chasing them. So that was a little bit concerning, but there were tremendous numbers of schools of menhaden. Early on this year, the stripers were down deep, and I was catching a lot of them on 5 and 7-inch Savage sand eels and also hoagie paddle tails, using also No Alibi and Spro jigs tipped with a twister tail, 3-inch, 4-inch twister tail and white. That worked really well. And now that the water's been warming up, we've been getting them on Albie snacks and sluggos. And I like all those lures because they all have single hooks, and you can pinch the barbs on them, and it does minimal damage to the fish, which is great compared to treble hooks. Fly fishing has been also equally good with, for me, with clousers and sand eel patterns working well, especially smaller ones, because a lot of the bait now, the sand eels are like 2 inches long. And so that's been working well. Fishing and gurglers and small poppers working well when the water's shallow and the fish are on top, like they were the other day on the West Bar. A lot of fish coming up there on these sand eels. And it's interesting, over the last couple of years, I've been noticing in May and June, a lot of 6 to 8 foot fish jumping in the channel outside the point. And last 2 years ago, I got a really good look at one of them, and it was an Atlantic sturgeon. And it's been kind of cool to see those back in action. They're endangered and protected, I believe. But it's pretty cool to notice that they're still there, and that they are, on some occasions I've been out there, see 3 or 4 of them jumping. And so that's been pretty neat. This year there is a slot limit for striped bass, 28 to 35 inches. You're allowed to keep 1 fish within that slot per day. And bluefish have also been regulated finally, better late than never, I guess, in my opinion. But you're allowed 3 bluefish a day of any size, unless you're on a charter, then you can take 5, I believe. It was interesting that John referenced fluke. Got a lot of fluke in that bar right outside the point, between the point and the red buoy. A lot of shorts, nothing like some of the doormats that we used to get years ago, but hopefully that'll change. But it'll be interesting to see what happens this year. Last week I went out also into the lobster pots and got some pretty nice size winter flounder and also an 18-inch black sea bass. And that was on clams. And black sea bass will also hit jigs and crippled herring and things like that because they're pretty aggressive. So that was encouraging to see that. And let's see what else is going on. Also, just a note of in terms of regulations, many of you probably know this already, but if you're fishing live or cut bait this year for stripers, you have to use inline circle hooks. And the inline basically means that the point is in the same plane as the shank versus offset circle hooks where the point is turned out a little bit. Offset circle hooks tend to lead to more gut hooking, so they've banned those. The only exception to that is if you're fishing bait on a lure, like a tube and worm, you don't have to use a circle hook for that. But if you're just using bait, live or cut, then the circle hook is what we have to use going forward, which I think is a great change. And as always, we encourage people to release their fish quickly and in the water if possible to minimize damage. And so that's pretty much what I've been seeing out there. And I don't know if anybody has any questions about anything, but happy to answer those if you do.
Is there, Britt, is there a size for sea bass?
Yeah, I believe sea bass is.
Sea bass
mine was
15 inches.
15 inches. Yeah, mine was 18 inches.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Thanks, Bob. But that means the water's warmer. We're seeing more of those guys, right?
Yeah, and usually, if you find a rock pile somewhere, and there's some of those down off Scorpion Ledge, for example, you can often find sea bass hanging around those. And so I think I just got lucky.
And they're really common on the south side. And
oh gosh,
mentioning
there's been
piles, that 110-foot deep spot where number 17 is off Osterville at the Horseshoe, you can almost never not get one.
Yeah,
crazy.
Yeah, it's been a banner year this year. Last year I went out to Noman's south west of Martha's Vineyard, and they were just all over the place.
I have a couple of questions. And first of all, I should be following you around, Britt. You have a very different fishing report than mine. But the first is, can you please talk about the false albacore that we saw last year? I didn't see them. Did you see them?
I didn't see them. I caught bonito the year before that.
The little teeny one.
Little bonito, like 10, 12-inch long. I didn't see any albies but I heard of albies being in the bay, and usually, of course, they're marauding along the south beaches. But again, in reference to the warmer waters, and they were even catching king mackerel last year, I believe, up this way. So and a sailfish the year before that. So things are a little crazy.
Go talk to moms.
But there've been a lot of stripers along the marsh banks, the sandbar edges, over the flats, in the rips. It's been really encouraging.
So about the sturgeon, what do they look like when you see them?
Prehistoric.
What color are they?
Jump out. They're sort of brownish gray. They have these bumps on their back and the barbels, and there's this really distinctive looking head. And they are really interesting fish. I don't know a whole lot about their life cycle. I do know that they were endangered and almost fished to extinction a while back, and they're now protected. I did hear of one report, or read a report of somebody catching a small sturgeon about 2 or 3 years ago down in Brewster, and was very careful to release it unharmed at that time. But I haven't heard of any other catches, but you can catch them, I suppose. Probably with bait on the bottom.
There was about 3-4 years ago, there was a dead one that was up by High Island, Wells Creek area that had probably been caught and released and didn't do well, obviously. But it was about a 4-footer. It was a heck of a fish, and there's nothing else to confuse it with.
No, it's true.
That's true.
Yeah.
I did some archaeology down in South Orleans years ago now, and one of the things that was the most common find in the shell midden we excavated was sturgeon scoot. I mean, they were primary dietary staple for the early occupants of the land down there. It's amazing the difference between then and now.
Interesting.
Well, I keep seeing in the channel big splashes, not, big like swirl, they're not swirls. It's like something comes up and goes down. And I remember, I thought the sturgeon, when I thought I saw them last year, and they always seemed to be kind of silvery, shiny, or there was a lot of reflection around them. And what I've seen this year looks kind of different and dark, and not like a seal or a whale. John, have you seen anything weird in the channel?
I think you're muted, John.
John?
Yep, I think I'm here now. Yeah, we've seen a couple of big splashes that went unidentified, and so that as soon as you said that, it made perfect sense because they were from distance. So that's very cool.
Submerged object. It could be.
And in September, of course, you'll see, especially out by the Bell, but I think I've seen a couple of them in the channel. The Mola Mola will come in, and I've seen them jump, and it's amazing that they can even jump, but they do.
The Mola Molas are incredible. I think 2 years ago, we had one trip on our way between Barnstable Harbor and Race Point. We counted 51 and stopped counting.
Jeez.
So we know them, and they're so bizarre that a fish that strange can jump 4 or 6 feet out of the air. It's just like, how is this happening?
Cool.
Amazing.
Well, does anybody have anything they want to add or ask about Britt about his fishing report?
Yeah, if I could just reinforce some of the things that he was saying. My brother and I were out fishing near the tip of Sandy Neck last year, and we were catching lots of bonita. not big ones, but the smaller ones were just everywhere and they were aggressive. They were going for plugs, at least half their size, so that they were, small metal, Swedish pimples, etc. But they were pretty aggressive. And then outside by Squatton Creek, we were getting some fairly large false albacore out there as well.
Down by Squirtin Ledge?
Squatton Ledge, yep.
Nice.
It's wild. I mean, I don't know. Someone told me the other day that years ago, maybe 15 or more years ago, that they caught a false albacore in Maraspin Creek. I don't know.
I don't know. Sounds like a fish story.
Hey, if a great white can be at
Yeah, right.
at the beach,
Yeah.
Right.
why not?
You don't
At
know.
what beach?
I
Yeah,
passed over one
no
right
way.
behind on Sandy Neck on the way to the lobster trap. We have lobster traps that we keep down at Squirtin Ledge. And 2 summers ago, I passed right over a juvenile, probably 8 foot long. And later that day, they closed Millway Beach because of the sighting. I'm
Right.
presuming it's the same fish.
Well, I guess next time we'll have to have a shark report too.
Let's hope not.
The
we
other
move-
thing, to add, just on the black sea bass, I saw a really large one on the East Bar. Unfortunately, it was in the mouth of a gray seal.
Oh, jeez.
Well, the seals are around, but they're not. I mean, they're singles usually is what I see. I haven't seen.
So far.
There's a bit of a colony over by on the West Bar, like way back close to Yarmouth. I'm not sure.
East,
like,
East
exact
Bar?
location. Like, yeah, East Bar,
Really?
sorry. And kind of like over towards ARC up in there. If you go over there in the middle of summer, there's tons of them. But yeah.
Yeah, I've seen them out there past the grass beds.
Yeah.
Sounds like a great place to go and walk a lot of large dogs on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Maybe they would choose a different place later on.
Who knows?
Yikes.
Tyler, when you say tons of them, how many?
Oh, I've seen like 100 together.
100 over there?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh.
yeah. They're starting to colonize in that area. I haven't seen them this year, but maybe it's like a midsummer hangout when the sharks show up and they kind of get pushed into certain areas where they feel safer.
Oh,
It's
okay.
all sounding good for the swimming pool business.
Yeah.
Which is
I hate
booming.
to say it.
Well, I guess that puts us getting a little closer to the whale report. John, are you ready to share with us the whale report?
Certainly. Well, our season started off great and gangbusters with a third of the North Atlantic right whale population in Cape Cod Bay at times. We had some sei whales, which are these really enigmatic big baleen whales that show up once every 6-8 years, and then we won't see them for a long time. Incredible. Alexander, please take that to mom. You're bringing it. I apologize here. I'm assisting my 9-year-old. Okay, please take that in the other room. Thank you. We also in the early season were really encouraged in seeing large quantities of sand eels out on Stellwagen Bank, out around Race Point, and it's something that we simply haven't seen for several years, and it brought in a real strong surge of early season humpbacks doing that beautiful bubble netting that they do, coming up with the open mouths, looks like mussels marinara. And then they all disappeared, because that's what happens. We have that early, like it's boom bust in the early seas, and everything heats up and shakes up in the shallows, and then Georges gets going, like down by the Regal Sword, and all the whales are stacked down there right now. So it's been we've been down to one juvenile humpback right off Race Point that we'd been relying on every trip until it got the diver in its mouth, and that was the whale. And after it shook him out, that thing took off, and it was 20. Well, one of the whale watch boats was able to pick it up and tracking it northeast. Well, why it's heading that way, but they followed it for about 8 miles, and it was still going when they peeled off. That thing wanted nothing more to do with Race Point.
It must have tasted terrible or something. Who knows?
Yeah. John, where do the right whales go during the summer?
So a good chunk of the population will end up down at the Great South Channel, and down in, in between Chatham and Georges. And then another section of the population generally heads up to the Bay of Fundy, Nova Scotia. That's what got them into trouble a few years ago, because they went up there, and with some of the upsloping warming that's occurring in the Gulf, they had low numbers of their favorite plankton, the Calnus finlandmarchia, and they simply went there, and the clouds of plankton they were looking for weren't there, and they were like, well, where's the food? We better go find it. And that's what brought them up near the mouth of Gulf of St. Lawrence into the crab pots up there, and that's where we got the unusual mortality event. We, I don't know, got about 25% of the population wrapped up and lost, I think, 17 whales that year. And then with boat strikes, because the fishermen up there know what whales are, they see them all the time, but not right whales. So they act so different in their feeding and everything that that was a bad year for them.
Maybe it's because they're smart and they don't want to get killed by people throwing fishing nets.
Wow.
And John, in terms of the sand eels, are there still a lot of them around Provincetown the way there were, or are there fewer?
Yeah, I'm happy to report there's a lot of bait still out there, and a lot of it's sand eels. And even up on the bank, we're seeing just schools and schools, which we haven't seen for a couple years. And right behind them, though, are herring, which are eating them. And they are, again, small, like Britt was saying. They're little guys. So, but better to have a bunch of them out there and have some make it than nobody make it. So it's encouraging, because we do know they're in trouble from changes in the pH that affect in the Gulf with warming waters and acidification. It affects them at a larval stage, and then they're prevented from developing. So it's nice to see them, and hopefully, sand eels also go in big, cycles like so many other things. So that's encouraging.
So what whales are you seeing today and tomorrow this week?
Any whales we can find. There's a lot of minke whales out there. Our smallest baleen whale. We see them frequently. They're tough to run a whale watch on because they are there and gone, and they don't put up a visible blow generally. Today we had a number of finbacks inside Herring Cove, and then a couple out off the station toward the Peaked Hill Bar out on the far side of P-Town. But for humpbacks, it's been hit and miss. There's just all of my my usual suspects, the 100 or so whales that I expect to see at some point in the lower part of the sanctuary haven't arrived, or they were here early and have bailed out, and we'll hope they come back. This is what we call our June drought, and it always happens because, again, things get going in the early season inshore, and then everybody bails out to the opening of the Chatham bars east.
Cool. Well, are there any questions for John about the whales? or the
I-
sand eels?
How about a related question somewhere between the two? Tuna, any tuna yet? Have you spotted any tuna breaking?
Nope, nope. We have not seen any tuna yet. There was a guy who looked really lost out there with a whole spreader set out the other day. Like, buddy, you're in the wrong body of water. But
Yeah,
nope, not yet.
a
Not
few
yet.
years.
We'll let you know when we start to see them, though. It could be a really, there's so much bait in the bay. I'll be surprised if there's any kind of a football population. It could be a really good year if they move.
Yeah. Yeah,
Have
it
you
was-
seen her?
While
Have you
either.
seen or heard anybody? I've heard big stripers being caught out there this past week and a half.
Oh,
to the
that
right?
would be the other thing. The last day we saw that little humpback, the one that tried to swallow the diver. We got into right after the tide changed, we got into probably 2 or 3 schools of 5,000-10,000 striped bass. I mean, good fish. They're here.
Yeah.
They're
Oh,
moving
good.
in. But that's pretty spectacular. And we had a calm day, so the people could see them.
Wow.
The whale watchers could look down and like see there's stripers. You're getting to see this all going on, which is cool and not every day.
Yeah.
Excellent. I'm going to follow the whale watch too.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you, John, and thank you, Britt, and thank you, Gordon. And unfortunately, Liz Lewis hasn't managed to show up, which is too bad. But maybe since we have Tyler and Mark on here, 2 of my favorite commercial shell fishermen, maybe you could give us a little bit of, I don't know, what's on your mind about commercial shell fishing or even recreational shell fishing?
What's on my mind? 2 things come to mind. For anybody that likes steamers, there's a ton of steamers out there. It just seems like an endless supply. I mean, every time I turn around, I think I've, it's not even worth going out to dig them, and then you get a limit, and you can foresee the next month of work, and then it just happens all over again. And there's a lot of steamers out there for anybody that likes steamers. And anytime anybody's out there and they see me, feel free to come up and I'll give you a little tutorial on how to get them. The most kind of like the least labor intensive way to do it, which is still pretty labor intensive. But yeah, happy to give anybody a tutorial there.
Have you tried salt water with them, Tyler?
It doesn't work.
Oh, it
Yeah.
doesn't?
Yeah. Razor clams have I mean, I'm sure Mark sees them all the time. Sometimes they're just swimming across the farm or swimming across the flat. They have a little bit more of a personality where if they don't like something, they can get up and leave. And
Yep.
the steamer's just kind of stuck, waiting to get fed on. So that's kind of what's going on with the shellfish in the harbor right now. There's, if you want to go get some clams, steamers are the clam of choice at the moment. And on the other end of things, something that's I've been scratching my head over it for a while is we've seen a big boom in recreational boating in general, fishing, boating. I think Millway sold out of boats last year, and along with every other marina out there. I know Nauset Marine down in Orleans sold out of their inventory like twice. So there's a lot more boats on the water than there have ever been. And with that, two outcomes are people are driving over the aquaculture sites, which is nerve-wracking for Mark and I's sake. And Amy from the town is working on new signs to get at the ramps. And I've been trying to raise a little bit of awareness there, just because if at high tide the harbor looks like you could go anywhere. When a few hours later it's a much different scene. But so on top of that is basically parking at Blish Point. I've talked to a couple people, and I really think that the first like 8 to 9, maybe 10 spots should just be, or the first 50 feet there from kind of that beach plum tree, maybe like 50 feet in, should just be for aquaculture guys, or commercial harvest. You know, guys with food in their boat that are trying to get it to market and out of the sun and as safely and efficiently as possible, since we're given time windows on that. So that's kind of one that's my current topic. So
Interesting. Blish Point being a state ramp, I'm still going to ask Gordon, do you think that the town has any chance of helping to make something like that happen? I mean, I think it's really important that if the town is going to promote commercial shellfishing, which they are, that they need to support it. And I mean, many of you have heard me say this time and time again. I mean, it's really great to bring commerce to the harbor, but it's not great if you're not providing infrastructure for it. And I guess that's part of what's happening at Scudder Lane, which that's Scudder Lane. But what about in the commercial center of the harbor? There are some designated parking spots in the trailer parking area for commercial shell fishermen, but I think that that's a reasonable request.
So what has basically been happening is picture a Saturday afternoon or Sunday or pretty much, it seems like, I mean, Blish Point was mobbed today. It was fully loaded. It was a Monday. And if low tide is at a time like noon, a lot of people want to go out to the sandbar. A lot of people are out fishing, and you got a line of guys trying to get to work, and it can be pretty stressful. And then so the parking lot is fully loaded. So we go to our 4, 5, maybe 6 aquaculture spots that we have, and that's just for aquaculture. So the commercial diggers can't, they're out of the picture. And basically those spots get chewed up. So I used to keep a skateboard in the back of my truck, and I'd park at the courthouse and shoot down to the harbor. But I just feel like there's not a ton of space, but I think it needs to be managed a little bit more efficiently, just to keep the guys that are there, guys and girls that are there every day, year round, and bringing commerce to the harbor. I mean, more oysters come out of Barnstable Harbor than any other harbor in New England, actually. I think Mark might be able to back me up on that.
Yeah, it's in the top 2. If it's not it goes back and forth between first and second place as far as how many delicious oysters come out of the place. And again, to follow up on what Tyler was saying, that first steamers, you can't get better steamers from anywhere. The Barnstable Harbor steamers are just so delicious. I've tried growing them. I ended up just feeding a lot of moon snails. So I have not tried to grow them commercially after 2 attempts in previous decades. But they are delicious. There's no doubt about it. One follow-up on one of the things that John said on, the acidification, how it can not only affect the sand eels and some of the population, but ocean acidification is hitting the aquaculture, the shellfish really hard. Some of the hatcheries have had tremendous difficulties, and they basically have to do big time pH control now to try and get the first shells to start developing on the few week old oyster seed that they're trying to develop. And I'm one of the first folks that got involved with a group that's now grown somewhat large, which is the Shellfish Growers Climate Coalition, which we're working not only with the aquaculturists, but some of the other industries that sell the shellfish products and things like that, to get the word out as much as possible through social media, on just how much climate change is more than just temperature, how it can affect your food and other things like that. So we're working hard to try and get that word out there. The other thing, to back up, what Tyler was saying, there's definitely, I find a lot of fishing lures on my gear because there are people trolling around with wire and jigs, in areas that clearly have large yellow balls with signs on it that say aquaculture, but people are not paying attention to that and hence losing their gear, and I'm sure not happy about it. I have more jigs than I know what to do with, so if anybody wants some, just let me know. Last but not least, the whole parking situation is a huge challenge. There's no easy answer. Having some kind of brainstorming sessions, Gordon, with I don't know who, with the various stakeholders, but it all boils down to working waterfront, and so it's a big challenge everywhere, and how to handle that in Barnstable, in around the boat basin and elsewhere. It is a big challenge. There'll be no easy answers, unfortunately, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't try.
Yeah, and as far as it is a state ramp, but it's managed by the town, and there are 2 town employees that are working there pretty much every day, if not one, during the busy season. It seems like the town could be in control of how, a new sign or something like that. It seems to be like in the town's control. I'd be curious to see if the money that people pay to park there go to the town, because if that is the case, then it's definitely, I'm pretty sure the town could paint a white line and say aquaculture over here and recreational over here.
But to be clear, Tyler, you just made a point. I'm writing.
Yeah.
As you talk, both you and Mark, because it's so interesting. But you just made a point that there are designated aquaculture spots, but there aren't designated commercial shell fishermen spots.
No, they're not.
Recognizing there is a difference, and they are one and the same. But yeah. Interesting. Good.
And that's down at the
down at the pumping station.
Down by the pumping station, yeah.
Yep.
So, wow, nice job on the shellfish report. I'm sorry Peter Oletherakis isn't here to have heard that, because I think you guys killed it. Really, really good. I just want to open up the meeting now to everybody to see if there's anything else that anybody wants to talk about, relevant to Friends of Barnstable Harbor, or anything you've heard before we sign off, because I'm as the directors pointed out to me the other day, I'm a stickler for the hour-long meeting. But anyway, does anybody have any questions for anybody who's spoken, or anybody else?
I have a quick question. Is there any operator who is doing anything remotely resembling the eco tours that is now not operating again? I mean, is there anyone who takes people out on the harbor as opposed to, distant charter and stuff like that? No.
Me, I'm signing up people left and right now for harbor tours.
Well, so there you go. I was just wondering what we could do to encourage something like that doesn't require a large business plan. And I'm sure there's a major insurance problem and all kinds of stuff that goes with it. And
mine just
John, whether you inspect it or not, the whole thing gets complicated, and I know that.
Mine just requires a large amount of money. It's a lot more than
that's all there is to it, right?
Well,
exactly.
As a I can volunteer one thing that might get somebody started. I'm about to put my 25-foot pontoon boat for sale that I used to use as kind of a work boat. It's not quite as nice as the past boat that was being used, but you got to start somewhere. So let me know if anybody is interested in a pontoon boat.
Yeah. Well, so that and Smitty's Ice Cream are the 2 vacancies in the village that I keep hearing about from people. And I heard from someone that the Smitty's organization has purchased a food truck.
Yeah, now they're looking for a place to park it.
Yeah, they're now going to be looking for parking and permitting and whatever, but they're mobile and they exist. At least that's better than vaporizing, but
Yeah.
you know,
That's good. That's good
trying to keep,
news.
it is good news. Trying to keep the village center vital as well as the harbor vital. I think the two are synergistic in some pretty important ways, and
Yeah.
it'd be nice to stay on it. Same chat at the village association meetings.
There is a proposal to sell soft serve ice cream out of the market.
Oh, okay.
If you look at the front of the market, the two windows on the left where the coffee section is,
Yeah.
they want to do a 12 by 12 foot section in there and serve right out the windows with soft serve ice cream.
Okay,
So that may happen before the end of summer.
cool.
Yeah.
Well, there are some of us on this call that I know remember when there was actually a soda fountain in that part of, as I call it, Miller's. In terms of the Echo Tour, I don't think I'm going to be giving too much away. When I say that it is in our long-term plan to try and establish a Friends of Barnstable Harbor Echo Tour
Right.
with the help of the town of Barnstable, and obviously all of you who are Friends of Barnstable Harbor, because it's always, I think Britt could speak to this more, but it's always seemed like a really great fit with our youth education program to be able to conduct harbor tours as well as outdoor classrooms on the harbor, and perhaps even find a way to balance the costs of providing public education by providing public tours. So anybody who's interested in really making that happen, please, let's start talking. But unfortunately, I think that the very first step is, aside from money, but the very first step is working with the town, because, just like Joe and the Barnstable Harbor Echo Tours, if you don't have a place to park the boat, you really can't run that business.
Yeah.
And further, if you don't have a place to park the cars, I mean, Joe did this crazy thing of, he had a van and he picked people up and he did all that. And I mean, it's a heavy load to carry to run, a business on the water. So, but great question. But Tyler?
Oh, I always wonder if there's a study out there that shows kind of like what a commercial fisherman or aquaculturalist or a charter boat, what kind of benefits those type of people that are creating the working waterfront bring to the harbor and bring to the town, versus the person with the boat that sits on the slip that takes up one of those spots that gets used 5 times a year.
Well, we all know the answer to that, don't we, us working waterfronters?
I think we do.
I think it's a way greater sum than the parts because of what it does, whether you're taking someone out fishing or whale watching or teaching about shellfishing. So many people that come and sit on that boat for an hour, watch folks come and go from the town ramp, and the questions that they're nonstop. They're more plentiful than whale questions. What are they doing? Da, da, da. I mean, there's what a great venue for education.
Yeah, again, following up on that, when I'm there, right behind the whale watch boat, unloading to, Island Creek, taking up, a few hundred, half the time we're talking back and forth from the people, up in the boat. Sometimes it's a little challenging with the diesel exhaust, but that's that's when you hope for a nice southwest wind to blow that away. But yeah, the people are very, very interested in what we're doing and wanting us to throw a bag up to them to take with them. They're like, no, we can't do that.
We use the diesel exhaust to kind of keep them calm.
That's what that'll do it.
The CO will do it every time.
Tempers their enthusiasm a bit.
Keep people up at the ramp too.
Yeah.
Well, it's not like Chesapeake Bay where you can just motor up to the buy boat and get a discounted bag of oysters and get a lesson on how to open them all at the same time. It maybe
Yeah,
don't do
wood
that anymore
crafts.
either.
You can
but
still do that at Cuddy Hunk.
Can you really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of cool. I mean, that's
is.
local stuff happening in the best kind of way.
Yeah.
I work with the Maritime Museum in Hyannis a fair bit. I've done it as an advisor for years. And Tyler's comment about the value and the multiplicity of the elements associated with a working waterfront is right on target. And it's something that we've talked about trying to pull an exhibit together around for years. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with the museum, if you have a chance to go down and have a look, but you know, your comments put the idea back in my head, and I'll share it with them again as an idea for an exhibit, because it has a pretty good reach. It has pretty good public relations capabilities, and it is a regional museum, not just a town museum, but it enjoys a really great relationship with the town of Barnstable, the town government, et cetera. And I think there might be some synergy there with all of the things you guys have been talking about. It'd be awesome to try and put something together like that.
I love some of those old pictures showing all the shellfish shanties down by where the boat ramp is in Hyannis.
Yeah.
That was interesting history.
It was a different world.
Yeah.
Well, Robert, thank you for the plug for the Cape Cod Maritime Museum, which I think is one of my favorite. I've been noticing your shirt since the moment.
Small logo, but there it is. That's not why I wore it today. It's getting worn out. I was out cleaning the car. That's why it's on.
But I mean, I think that's a great museum, and it's really been amazing to watch it grow. I did share just a couple of nights ago that the day after I accepted made the choice to become president of the Friends of Barnstable Harbor, Lee Marshall then called me up and said, "Do you want to be on the Cape Cod Maritime Museum board?"
There you go.
Oh my God, I did, because I was actually one of the first catboat Sarah
Oh, sure. Oh, I didn't know that. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
So do you want to do it again? We're looking for a skipper for the
No,
Sarah for the summer.
Thank
Why
you.
not?
It was fun, but but I
John,
love,
you have any spare time?
Just
Kidding.
I want to stick with what your point and Tyler's point, which I think ties in really nicely to some of the things that have been kind of on the table for years now around the Barnstable Marina. And one of those things is that there is the, I call them the 6-pack charter boat fleet, even though they're actually, I even have a master's license, but they're the regular charter boats. They take up to 6 passengers. There used to be quite a few of them in the harbor. Now I think they're down to, I don't know, what, 5 of them are left over of the old school kind of traditional charter boats. And there used to be little booths on the end of the harbor where people would sell tickets for the trips. And I've been talking with Gordon, and also back when it was John Flores, about trying to make that end of the harbor be a little bit more of a showcase for the work that goes on in the harbor, including those charter fishing boats. I think that those slips, I wish that they could stay charter fishing boats in perpetuity, which has been an idea that's been tossed around for a long time, but never gets any traction because people say, well, it's a private interest. We can't maintain, we have to keep it open to the public.
Blame the CG&E for all of the trouble with that. The town's approach to marina slips in the town-owned marinas is driven by the competition for turnover of slips.
Right.
And that's all because of the disaster with the CG&E, where one of the kids drowned off her a few years ago, and the liability lawsuits there were. The town has tightened its policy horrifically since then.
I'm sorry, what happened? I don't know this story.
The CG&E 4 was owned by the guys that used to own the Burger King franchises here on the Cape. And the brothers, that's right. And they had a skipper and his son who took out a bunch of Irish kids who were here for the summer, Irish workers. And they served alcohol to underage people, and a girl fell overboard and she drowned. She was not recovered. I mean, not in time. And it blew up in the news, and the town was right in the thick of it because it was rented to, it was a town-owned slip. And there were all sorts of complexities about who actually owned the vessel, what the liability was for the owner, what the liability was for the town, and they changed their policy about how a slip may be rented from then on. And it's made it very difficult to find flexibility in town policy on marina slips. And I think it's done nothing but put pressure on the commercial slips to sadly increasingly disappear, and for more private slips to be occupied by private boat owners who use their boats 5 times a year, like Tyler was saying. I hope they use it more often than that, but I get your point. I mean, he's not wrong.
Well,
It's a shame.
that's fascinating. I didn't know that at all. I had
Yeah,
no
Google
idea.
Sea Genie, I think Sea Genie 4 and Barnstable, Bismore Park, whatever. It's probably still out there. I'll see if I can find it for you and I'll email it to you, Avery. But you know,
Cool.
it's just a piece of history. And I promise you, if you start talking to the town manager or Andy or anybody in the Waterways Committee with some longevity on this stuff, they're all going to have this in the back of their minds. And I'm sure even the new town attorney, who isn't new anymore, but I still think she is, probably has that as part of her early indoctrination on the subject of town slips and marinas. This is a hard and fast policy matter. Too bad.
I've called every town around, Falmouth, Plymouth, just about every town other than Chatham and Wellfleet take priority for working waterfront kind of priority, which Chatham and Wellfleet have a very strong working waterfront.
Yeah.
And none of the towns around us basically have like put any priority towards commercial fishermen or aquaculture. Anybody can get any slip or mooring at some point if their name comes up on that waiting list. And so it's not just Barnstable that has this issue, but to me that's the number one reason why we're losing our working waterfronts, is because there's no priority. So
it makes sense.
Yeah,
I mean, it's horrible, but and what you're saying makes sense. Yeah, that's too bad.
Wow, that's not the note I want to end.
Okay, let's
Back to the sandy.
Fix it, Gordon, fix it.
Well, I was making a comment to John about how this is actually the best right whale baby year we've had since I can remember. I think there are 18 new babies this year. It's like unbelievable. We went years with none, you know, and then it's fantastic. So there's hope.
Okay. Well, I have to say thank you all for this meeting. I think this has been really, really, really good. And I think when everybody signed in, it said this meeting's being recorded, which I'm gonna look at what it means and whether or not that's something I can easily put up on the website, because I'm so sorry there isn't a larger turnout, because I think that what happened in this meeting has been really, really informative, and it really is. I think it's a great forum for Friends of Barnstable Harbor, for people to not only talk about stuff, but to learn about stuff. And I really love it. I mean, working waterfront, and
I've learned a ton. I mean, from Gordon and from Tyler and Mark. I mean, I know where to go fish now. I mean, it's what more do you need? What a great thing if we could see how this is structured. I think we would, you know, get a lot of people and a lot of interest. But it's, you know, how do we get it out there? Because I don't know. I just thought it was great.
it's really good. Well, we'll keep at it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, everybody. And yeah, see you out on the water.
Okay.
see you down.
Very nice to see all of you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.